I've often said, and I've said this to Deion Sanders, who's been a friend for decades. I love him dearly. I love him like a brother. And I've said to him, you're so big time as prime time. We're almost allergic to seeing you in the daytime. That's how big time you are. When we think about you, we think about bright lights because that's what he personifies. That doesn't vibe and coincide with Boulder, Colorado. I'm sorry. It just doesn't. Now, you want to remain as loyal as you possibly can to them. They gave you your shot. You were coaching at an HBCU, Jackson State, and they brought you to the Pac-12. You understand? And now you're in the Big 12. No doubt about it. You owe a debt of gratitude to that university, and you might not want to leave for something else. I wouldn't advise them to leave for Florida State. They had their chance to get him. They passed. Okay. If it's not an SEC team, I thought a Texas A&M should have looked at him. I thought a team like that, Alabama, even though I knew that would never happen. Something like that. Florida, you should look at him. If you decide to make a change, all true. That's SEC. You get that part. But outside of that, it's got to be the NFL. And I don't know how Primetime could pass up a shot to coach the Dallas Cowboys.
That's what I am saying.
I can't imagine that he would do that. Now, I think that Jerry would be very hesitant, and here's why Jerry wouldn't do it. It's not because of inexperience. It's because Primetime is every bit as box office as Jerry, if not more so. And so when he speaks, he's going to command a level of tension in front of that microphone that Jerry Jones could has to rival, that would have trouble rivaling. And that's not what Jerry wants. But it would obviously be the right decision for Jerry to make, because when you're talking about primetime coaching the Dallas Cowboys, well, sizzle and headlines make you money. That would be, from a business standpoint, an absolutely brilliant move by Jerry Jones. But what if Deion turns his team around and they get to an NFC Championship game and they end up winning the Super Bowl? Then he'd get the credit, not Jerry. And if Jerry has proven anything else, is that credit means a lot to him. That's where he's at. That's what he stands on. And that's very, very problematic for the Dallas Cowboys when you look at their future. If anything, that's the ultimate indictment against Mike McCarthy. Because to coach the Dallas Cowboys, in most instances, certainly not with Bill Parcells, certainly not with Jimmy Johnson, but in practically every other situation, Wade Phillips, Jason Garrett, Chan Gailey, others, the perception is that Jerry Jones wants a yes man as a head coach. And we know that ain't going to be primetime. But clearly that was something Mike McCarthy was willing to be. And that ultimately hurts him in the end.
Has been the greatest gem in college football, probably bigger than Nick Saban. I said it. The culture, what he means to so many different people, the swagger, the bravado, everything that he just embodies, is prime. Coach prime at that. But as a realist, somebody got to put the foot down and just speak facts. I believe in nepotism. I believe that, hey, everything that you're doing, you got to put your people on.
Yeah.
He's done that. But when you think about this statistic right here, Coach Prime has coached his son, Shedeur, in rec ball. Yeah. Some people call it rec ball. Some people call it park ball. He coached him in high school. Mm-hmm. He coached him in college. I don't know what the rap is of things that, the takeaways, or what's his grade on the board. My biggest question for Shedeur Sanders is, can he be coached by other people outside of his father? Because when you look in the real world, Molly, when you look in the real world, RC, when you look in the real world, Stephen A., when you think about the statistics, you've only had one coach since you was 8 years old.
Yeah.
And now you're 22. Have you built this protection around, can somebody really, and has he really been coached the right way to be able to say, hey, boy, sit down and hold on. Man, could you please sit down? Because the offensive coordinator or the quarterback coach is employed by his dad.
Yeah.
That's the realist. And what do you say to the NFL locker room of the veterans that have earned their right? Two, another question that I have is, what we've seen from Anthony Richardson this year, what we've seen from Bryce Young this year, can Deion bench his son? Can Deion cut his son, Shiloh? Or even just given the situation? Like, it's the big leagues in the NFL. And I know what that NFL locker room is going to look like, because now you're talking to men, not boys. You're talking to men that probably makes more money than you. Mm-hmm. So how do you say that in retrospect to that? And that's just something to just think about.
Let me counter that. First of all, Deion Sanders and I go back more than 2 decades. That's my brother. Got mad love for him. Very proud of the job that he's done at Colorado. I still think it was a huge mistake for Florida State not to bring him on board. He wanted that job, and they didn't give him that opportunity. I think that I would love to see him in the SEC with a big-time program with major dollars where recruiting and NIL and all of that stuff would be an issue. Having said all of that, I think you asked the wrong question. You asked about Shedeur Sanders and can he be coached by someone other than his dad? I would ask, can the dad coach someone else at the quarterback spot that ain't his son? See, I believe in Deion Sanders. I believe in the job that Deion Sanders has done to prepare his son for the next level. I believe in that. But in the same breath, to piggyback off of the points that you made, in terms of you gonna bench your son, is somebody gonna talk to this player, to your son, knowing they work for you, or an assistant coach, et cetera, et cetera? Yeah, you could ask that question that way. What I would ask is, okay, when your son ain't the quarterback anymore, you know your son backwards and forward. He's got your DNA.
All right, let's talk about something that's been on every Cowboys fan's mind lately, the salary cap. I mean, we're all sitting here wondering, how can this team, with so much potential, finally make the right moves to take us to the next level? And guess what? The answer might lie in something as simple as how we handle the money. Right now, the Cowboys are looking at some serious opportunities to create up to $100 million in cap space for free agency. Yeah, you heard that right, but before we get into the specifics of how they can pull this off, let me ask you something. If you were in charge, would you go all in on free agents or stick to the Cowboy way of building from within? Let me know in the comments. Vote, free agency blitz or stick to the draft? And don't forget, if you're loving this kind of deep dive into Cowboys strategy, make sure you hit that subscribe button and turn on notifications so you don't miss our next breakdown. Now, let's break this down step by step, starting with the biggest move they can make, restructuring Dak Prescott's contract. Stay with me, you're going to love this. As the Cowboys season unfolded, one thing became painfully clear: injuries took a toll on this team. Think about it, how can you expect consistency when critical players are sidelined? Losing stars like Trevon Diggs and key contributors on both sides of the ball disrupted the rhythm, leaving gaps that were tough to fill. But here's the question we need to ask ourselves. Was it just bad luck, or was this team too dependent on a few star players to carry the load? When Diggs went down, the defense struggled to maintain its dominance. And defensively, when Tyron Smith wasn't fully healthy, it seemed like Prescott didn't have the protection he needed to thrive. This is where I need your opinion. Do you think the Cowboys' struggles were mainly due to injuries, or does this go deeper, like coaching or roster depth issues? Drop your thoughts in the comments, and while you're at it, let's make this interesting. Vote in the poll we've put up. Do you believe the Cowboys roster is deep enough to contend with injuries? Yes or no? Alright, but let's not lose hope just yet. The injuries were significant, yes, but they weren't the only factor. There's a deeper issue with how this team responds to adversity, and we'll talk about that in just a moment. Stay tuned, because what comes next will make you think about leadership in this organization when the going gets tough. Leadership is supposed to step up, right? But for the Cowboys, the leadership on and off the field left much to be desired this season. Let's talk about Mike McCarthy for a second. The man is supposed to be the glue holding this team together. Yet how many times have we seen the Cowboys falter under pressure? It's like a broken record, isn't it? And don't get me started on Jerry Jones. Yes, he's an iconic owner, but sometimes it feels like his influence is more of a distraction than a driving force. His insistence on being involved in every decision, how much of that is helping and how much is holding the team back? Now, here's where you come in. Do you think Mike McCarthy is the right coach for this team moving forward? Or is it time for a fresh face to take the reins? Let me know your thoughts in the comments below. And while we're at it, vote in the poll. Should the Cowboys fire Mike McCarthy? Yes or no? Leadership, or the lack thereof, doesn't just come from the sidelines. It's also about the players. Dak Prescott is supposed to be the face of the franchise, but can he rally this team in critical moments? The inconsistency we saw this year raises serious doubts, but let's pause here for a second. There's more to leadership than just calling plays or giving speeches. Next, we're diving into the culture of this team and whether it's helping or hurting their chances for success. Stick around, this might just explain everything. What defines the culture of a championship team? It's grit, accountability, and an unrelenting desire to win. Now, take a hard look at the Cowboys. Do you see that culture here? Because I don't. This season felt like deja vu again. The same mistakes, the same lack of urgency when it mattered most. How many times have we seen this team fall apart in big moments? It makes you wonder if complacency has set in. Is this a team that's satisfied with just being good enough to make headlines, but not good enough to make history? Here's a question for you. How much of this culture falls on the players, and how much falls on the coaching staff and front office? Drop your thoughts in the comments. And here's a poll for you. Do the Cowboys need a complete culture reset? Yes or no? Think about it. Teams like the Eagles and the 49ers, love them or hate them, have built cultures where every player is held accountable. Every detail matters. Can we honestly say the same about the Cowboys? It's time to face a harsh reality. The Cowboys might be stuck in a cycle of mediocrity because of this very culture. But don't lose hope just yet, because the future isn't set in stone. In our final chapter, we'll talk about what it will take to turn this ship around. So, what's next for the Dallas Cowboys after a season like this? The pressure is mounting. But with pressure comes opportunity, a chance to make the tough decisions that could finally push this team to greatness. First, it starts at the top. Jerry Jones and the front office need to take a hard look in the mirror. Is sticking with the same formula year after year really working? If the answer is no, and let's be honest, it probably is, then bold changes are overdue. Whether that's moving on from certain players, making coaching changes, or rethinking the entire organizational approach, nothing should be off the table. But let me ask you, if you could make one change for the Cowboys this offseason, what would it be? Drop your ideas in the comments, and while you're at it, vote in this poll. What should be the Cowboys' top priority? New coaching staff, better draft picks, or a culture overhaul? The truth is, the fans deserve better. You deserve better. You stuck by this team through thick and thin, and it's time they deliver a product on the field that matches your loyalty and passion. And here's where you come in. This is our team, and our voices matter. Share this video with fellow fans. Let your opinions be heard, and let's hold the Cowboys accountable together. We can push for the changes this team desperately needs. Because at the end of the day, the Cowboys aren't just a football team, they're a symbol of hope, of tradition, of what it means to strive for greatness. It's time they start living up to that legacy.